Hi, my name is Kees, and today's video is about letting go of patterns in your relationship. So understanding, first of all, that there are patterns in your relationship. I mean, I've been with the same woman for 11 years, so of course there are patterns in our relationship. Just like there are patterns in ourselves. But just like there are patterns in ourselves we can let go of, to function on a higher level, to have more fun, to enjoy our lives more, and to be freer, then it must be, and it is possible, to do the same thing on the level of your real romantic relationships. So this video is about letting go of some of these patterns in your romantic relationship. There are lots of things to say, so let's go. First of all, anything which happens in your relationship, which you see as a pattern, there are several layers to that. First of all, you have your thoughts about it. You have even deeper your beliefs about that. So you have your thoughts and beliefs, which are causing some of your behavior. And then that behavior is a meeting point with the other person, because they also have their thoughts and their beliefs. And that also enacts itself in their behavior. And then your behavior meets. And of course, if there are patterns in your thoughts and beliefs, what you see is that some of these behaviors, they might rub against or rub off in the wrong way with the other person. So sometimes you can say something to the other person, and because of their filter or their thoughts and beliefs about what you just said, they get angry. And sometimes that is because your thoughts and beliefs are actually that of anger or frustration at the other person. Sometimes it's just a natural response because your behavior elicits that anger. But sometimes your thoughts and behavior is not in anger, is not negative, for example. But the other, in their thoughts and beliefs, or their filter, you could say, filters it out and processes it as something which is negative. To look at some of your patterns, if you both get angry, right? If you both get triggered, what is triggering? Triggering is an emotional response which is bigger than is normal of a response to that type of stimulus. So let's say my girlfriend says, "Have you cleaned the kitchen?" And I said, "What? Are you doing this again?" That that's one of the responses which I could have easily given a few years ago, and that's definitely a trigger. So sometimes the other person says something, or you have a discussion, and you only get angry, you only get triggered. So then this is your pattern. It's not a pattern of the relationship. It's just that the other triggers you. But you have something that can be triggered. So it's yours to work on. But sometimes what happens quite a lot in relationships is that you trigger each other. So let's say one gets triggered, they say something back, and the other gets triggered as well. So now you both have something to work on, right? So in a relationship, it's always actually these two people which meet, which both have their characteristics, but if one of them gets angry, then they have something to look at, or thoughts and beliefs that are in the way of functioning in a relaxed and normal way. Then the other person, if they get angry, they have the same thing. If you both get angry, you should focus on what triggers you. Now, there is one catch with this. So what I'm saying basically is relationship patterns are individual patterns, but they do need a different approach. And what is very different about letting go of relationship patterns is that you need to communicate about what happens. You need to communicate, I get triggered about this, or the other person needs to communicate, I get triggered about that. Not that you then need to do a different action, but then you can understand why things happen like that. And you can maybe look at communicating in a way that doesn't trigger them, but ideally, of course, you want them to work on their pattern. But even though they might have sort of a pattern that they have worked on, they might not still like your behavior. So maybe they have a preference. And a preference and a trigger is very different, because a preference doesn't have an overly emotional reaction to it. So communicating preferences is extremely important in a relationship, and preferences does not always, of course, need to be adhered to. Preferences are not the new rules, let's say, of the relationship. What we need to do is we work on our triggers, and then we communicate our preferences, and some of them will be met and others will not be. But if your preferences are not met, it will probably not be a deal breaker. But if your triggers are not matched and you are not working on your triggers, you get big arguments, big fights, or big emotions that can overflow or overspill or turn into a huge thing or even cause a breakup. So what we want to do is we want to always work on our triggers. So when we get overly angry, we want to feel the emotion and understand that it's coming from a different place. I love the Zen saying, angry people get angry. What that means is the emotion which gets triggered was already there. It just now finds an outlet that, let's say, something comes in, a stimuli comes in, which can allow that anger which is already there to come out a little bit, to free flow a little bit. So what we can do to release some of these triggers is go to the emotion and be with them. It sounds very simple, but it takes time to practice this. So you need a secluded moment, a moment for yourself, maybe of meditation, contemplation, reflection, and sit with yourself, maybe journal or think about or meditate on the feelings you have, and do that in a sort of safe, secluded way. So with this way you let go of your patterns, your part of it. But then if it's something which affects both of you, you need to talk about, okay, this triggered me, this worked on this, or this worked on that. Could you maybe say it like this, right? So state your preference as well. Could you maybe, or this triggers me because, and maybe the other understands, right? Maybe you can say, well, in my childhood, this happened. So if you say something like this triggers me, right? So of course, some triggers are easily worked on, but let's say it's hardcore trauma, this takes time. So you cannot expect your partner to change or to let go of that pattern, which also enacts itself in the relationship. It's not that easy. In my coaching practice, I see a lot of people that run into things either in their business or in their relationships or in their different manifestations of the patterns which they have. So the pattern is usually a core to a lot of different problems. So when we find out these patterns and we can be with them and let go of them by letting them be, then what happens is we are free. And we can start communicating in a relaxed way about our patterns. And let them go together. And what will happen is because patterning is something which cannot be avoided, because the brain is trying to save energy. And because the brain is trying to save energy, it builds habits. It builds these neural pathways in our brain to easily access certain information and certain behavior, to make it easier, right? And the habit changes after 66 days, according to the new research. So that means that it will take time to build a different habit in your relationship as well, but also that it's normal to have certain patterns or to have certain habits as a couple. But something to keep in mind or to think about it again and again, if you don't like some of these patterns, you can change them. And some can be changed just by stating a preference and taking action on that preference, but some require the inner work of letting go of some of your patterns. I hope this helps. Much love to you. If you have any questions about this, leave them below. And subscribe if you haven't. Like the video if you like it. Have a great day. Bye bye.